So I was thinking for this video, I would get a little bit more in depth about the evolution of the martini, because I think it's a really interesting story and it says a lot about how we drink and how it's changed. So like I said in my last video, the martini is a classic cocktail. It's one of the original cocktails, which means that it was first created, it first became popular in roughly the 1890s in the United States. So the United States is the originator of the cocktail, and the martini was invented in the United States. And that original martini was Genever, which is a sweetened Dutch-style gin, and a sweet vermouth, and then bitters, which is very, very different than the drink that you might know today. So how that changed, it went through a couple of stages. So first of all, the vermouth, sweet vermouth, was definitely one of the most popular drinks at the time. It was kind of like the go-to, like, yeah, throw some sweet vermouth in there, it'll make a great drink. Everybody loves it. Eventually that got switched out for dry vermouth, especially when you start looking in the warmer states, the southern states, and then eventually into the western areas of the United States. And then gin began to change. Genever was no longer sort of your standard gin. It got drier, it got more pine flavored, and it got less sweet. So now it's been, probably 10 or 15 years, and you're looking at a dry gin, a dry vermouth, and your bitters. And then eventually gin started to fall out of fashion entirely. And that's when you start getting vodka, which was, I want to say, in the 1950s, 1960s was when vodka started becoming really popular in the United States, which is a really fun story just in itself. And honestly, don't hold me to these dates because it's been probably 3 years since I read all of these books that I'm referencing right now. So if I'm a little off, I'm sorry, but the idea is still the same. So eventually vodka becomes popular, it starts taking over, people want vodka martinis, but it's still got this dry vermouth in it, and it's still got the bitters. That sticks around. So people start asking for their vodka martini, and at this point you're still looking at a ratio of 2 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of vermouth, and then you shake it, stir it, whatever, and serve. And it just keeps getting lower. This vermouth ratio just keeps getting lower and lower and lower, and then eventually you introduce the dirty martini with olives. And there's been a couple introductions at this point. There's the Gibson martini, where you take those little teeny tiny cocktail onions and you put them in there. There's the Vesper martini that has a specific type of vermouth. So you have these iterations on it, but generally speaking, the classic martini continues to change. You get less and less of this dry vermouth into it until you reach a point about 30 years ago where people finally start to go, and that's where you get the wave a bottle of vermouth at it, or pour it in, rinse it, splash it out, so you just have the idea of it. And it's just straight up 3 ounces of ice cold vodka in your martini glass, and maybe olive juice if you're into that. So I think what I'm saying is, if you feel like you're not a martini person, there could be a very good reason for that, because a lot of people, most people, don't like 3 ounces of ice cold vodka in a pretty glass. That is not how I like to drink, regardless of how good the vodka is. So it might be worth trying, especially if you like wine, if you like more bitter drinks. Personally, I can drink vermouth just by itself. I think it's delicious. I think it's amazing. And it's a shame that most people have not had good vermouth, or they haven't had vermouth that was still good, because it does need to be kept like wine. But basically, if you think you're not a martini person, you should try different types of martinis. Try it with gin, try it with vermouth, try the 2-to-1 ratio, try it with Genever. It's totally different drink and a lot more like an enjoyable cocktail that you might have today. So thanks for listening, and I hope you start trying different new and exciting drinks, and I hope you come down and pick up some of our beautiful glassware. To keep an eye out, every other Saturday we are at the farmers market up on the corner of the 101 and the I-17. So if downtown is a little far or a little bit too much work, check us out there every other Saturday.